Well, hello there and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Deepa Robbins and I'm coming to you from Designs by D to show you yet another card, and this one's going to be from the June 2018 Simon Says Stamp card kit. So here's the card that I made, and as you can see, it's got that beautiful floral background that comes with the main stamp set from the kit. And I did some coloring in honor of the June 30-day coloring challenge. And then I also dressed up the inside. So this is a full inside and out card that I have for you today. I hope you enjoy it. So let's get straight into it. So I'm actually adding the beautiful stamp from the Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Flowers stamp set that comes with this card kit. This stamp set alone is what made me buy this card kit. It's really nice. And I'll be stamping it on some Neenah Exact white 90-pound cardstock. And this is about a 9-inch by 4-inch piece. I'll be using My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink here to stamp on that sentiment. And here I'm going to do a bit of masking, just so I can get that nice sentiment in the center of that beautiful floral background. Well, floral image. So I'm drying it off a bit because I'm going to be adding this Molotow Masking Pen. This is the 2mm. I believe it also comes in a 4mm, so a thicker pen. And what you got to do is sort of push down the tip there to sort of get the liquid flowing. And then what I'm going to do is basically color in the center of these sort of outlined letters. And I'm just going to take my time doing it to make sure that I get a good even coat of that liquid on top so that I get some good masking going on. So I'll just continue with each of the letters here. And this is like another cool little way to sort of mask your images. I really like this pen. So here I am all done. And the most important thing about this is you got to make sure that that fluid is dry. So once it's dry, it'll be like a tiny bit tacky, but you can see I can rub my finger over top of it and nothing's coming off. So that's good. And I'm going to use the My Favorite Things Black Licorice ink again to stamp that floral image over top. So now that I have the sentiment masked, it's not going to stamp within that masked area, which is pretty cool. So I'm actually going to ink this up and stamp it twice. And that's because I want it to have a nice dark image. So there you go. That's the beautiful image. Seriously, I love this stamp set. So I'm using the Xyron adhesive eraser. I think I've explained this before. I don't even know how I lived without this before, but this is a really good eraser for getting that adhesive off. And as you can see, didn't ruin the cardstock or the image, the stamped image at all. And it just comes right off, especially with that eraser. You could also, if you didn't have the eraser, use your finger to sort of just rub it off. Now here's where I'm going to do some of my coloring. I've got my colors listed below. I chose to go with some yellows and oranges. Just to sort of lighten it up. This was a June card kit, so I figured I'd make it a bit more summery. And I'm also into those sort of corally, orangey, pinky type colors right now. I don't usually use yellow, so this is a big step for me. I'm not really a yellow lover, but hey, when it's mixed with certain other colors, it looks really cool. So all I'm really doing is sort of taking my darkest color and filling in like where I would think the darker parts of the flower would be. And this stamp is really good for this because it has a lot of detail in it. So any area in which it would be darker, it's got lots of small, fine black lines, which sort of helps you and guides you in terms of where you want to put your darker shadows. And then wherever there's less of those black lines is where you want to be putting your highlights. Me, I have a really bad habit of losing my highlights. That's partly why I chose to use the yellow marker, because it helps me find my highlights. Because otherwise I just have an image with no white at all. So I'm going with each color one by one to the lightest color, and then I'm going over it again and intensifying my darker areas. So that's the final image I get with that. Now I'm going to move on to the leaves here. These are the colors that I'm using. I have them listed below. And as you can see, I have some greens, and then I also have yellow greens to sort of tie in the yellows from my flowers to the leaves so that it looks a bit more cohesive and the colors sort of go together better. And that's a good tip for when you are coloring, you don't want to choose colors that are completely different. I mean, if you want it to be more abstract, that looks great, but I wanted this image to look a bit more realistic. So I went ahead and colored those leaves in the same manner. I started with the darkest color, and then I went outwards to the lightest color, and then I sort of went back in with my darker colors. And that helps you create that or intensify your dark shadowy area so that it isn't too blended out. And that's the final image I got there, but I still have a bit more coloring to do because I have to color those little centers of the flowers. And I'll be using E47 and E35 for that, which are a really light and a really dark brown. And in this case, instead of using a flicking motion, I'm going to be using a stippling motion. Now I'm going to be using this Sakura white jelly roll pen. This comes in handy, and I recommend having it in your stash. Basically, the coloring went into the center of those letters, so what I'm doing is whitening it up so that it stands out a bit more. I could have left the Molotow on here while I was doing my coloring, but I didn't want to risk it getting ruined any which way. I figure it might work, but I didn't want to risk that, so this is how I'm doing it. So here's my lazy way of masking. I just take Post-it notes, the full sticky backs, and sort of tear it in pieces all over my image to cover it. I don't need an exact coverage, so it's not a big deal here to cut out a full mask. And I'm going to be using the Hero Arts gold ink here. I'm just going to put it on an acrylic block, and I'll add a bit of water. So I have my water spray here. I'll add a bit of water to it, and then what I'm going to do is create some flicks of gold droplets all over the front of this image of my card front. So I'm just going to use a paintbrush here, mix up the water with the gold, and I'm just flicking this all over the place. This is a pretty controlled way of getting your droplets wherever you want it, and as you can see, you get this really cool shiny gold droplet effect. So what I'm going to do is take off my mask here, my pretty messy torn up mask, being careful not to peel off anything below. And there's a final image that you get. It's pretty cool, especially with those droplets. So I'm going to move on and use this set from the ton. I'm going to be using the set from the bottom there, Peony Notes C, and I'm just using the sentiments Have A and Birthday. Now, I didn't get it on tape here on video, but I used some VersaFine Onyx Black to stamp out that Have A and Birthday at the top and bottom. And I'm moving on to my card base, and I'm using my normal Hammermill Printer Paper 100 pound white. Like I said, it is pretty thick. It is not like actual printer paper. And I'm just marking off how big I want my front to be. So this is my lazy way of doing it. And I'm just scoring where I would want my card to fold based on how I marked it in the front. This is another way of doing it instead of knowing your exact measurements. Like I said, I hate measuring. So now I folded it, and I'm going to cut off that excess piece so I get just the right shape for my card base. So as you can see, I have a bit of a border on the top and bottom, and I'm just measuring the size of that because what I'm going to do is cut out 2 pieces to add on. And I'm using this Die Cuts with a View copper metallic cardstock. I actually got this in a pack with a bunch of other different color cardstocks from Michaels. So it's going to be hard to sort of show you where I got it from, but I'll try and find a link for you. And I'm using my Be Creative tape here. I'm just sizing it up. I think a 1/4 inch size works the best for this. And I'm actually going to tape this straight to the card base. I don't want to tape it on the actual card strips because I'm not going to use the whole strip. So I've taped on the bottom and top here, and I'll remove my my backing and just sort of position my card piece on the top here. And I'm going to use that scoring tool just to make sure that it's pressed down nice and firm. So as you can see, I have these little overhanging bits that I'm just going to cut off with my scissors. Nice and simple. So there's what the front is going to look like. And I'm just going to add some dimension here with some 3D foam tape. This is the 3M long tape. I love this tape because it's got a good height to it. It's pretty thick, and it comes in these nice big rolls at a pretty good price. I think it's actually cheaper in the US than it is in Canada, but you can get them on Amazon. So I've added 3 strips there to the back and taken off the release paper, and now I'm just positioning it on the front of my card. And there you go. So now I've got some cool dimension there and that lovely copper on the top and bottom to tie in with the oranges from the flower. And as always, I have to add these gems, or I have to add some type of embellishment because I'm never done unless I do. So these are those gems that I get from the dollar store. Super cheap, that whole pack. Like, I can't even tell you how many of these are in there, and they already have an adhesive backing, so I don't even have to add any glue. They're only $1.25 plus tax. So for all of you in Canada or any of you from the US visiting, pick these things up. They're super cool and they're going to last you a long time. So now I'm going to work on the card inside, and I'm just showing you here that I have a lot of depth to that front of the card, so it's going to be hard to do the inside as is. So I had to cut out a different piece of cardstock. So this is my thinner cardstock, the Neenah Exact 90 pound. And I'm going to be using these Distress Oxides, Abandoned Coral, Fossilized Amber, and Antique Linen to sort of create a bit of a blended effect on the two edges of the card that would be, in this case, the top and the bottom edges. So I'm just going to start with the darkest amber color there. I didn't really want to use an orangey color, and I don't think I have any of the orange colored oxides. So I used that Abandoned Coral, and now I'm adding the yellow over top of it. So as you can see, the Fossilized Amber is making that Abandoned Coral more orange. So that gives it a nice blended look. And then the Antique Linen here, what that's going to do is sort of even out the yellow from the Fossilized Amber and help it trail off into the white at the top there. So I'm just going over and reblending as I see fit. And because these are oxide inks, they go on like butter. They are very nice. You don't have to press too hard, and it gives you a really nice blended effect. Much easier compared to the actual Distress inks. So there, I've done it on both edges. And now I'm going to add this floral image that I had on the front, just on the edge at the bottom here. So I've lined it all up in my Misty, and I'm going to be, well, I'm deciding here. I think at first I was going to go ahead and use the VersaFine, but I realized that gives it a really thick, solid black color, and I wanted it to be faint. So I'm going to go back to the My Favorite Things Licorice Black, because like I said, I want it to be a faint sort of image, and I want it to not stand out too much because this is the inside of the card. I want it to be a little more subtle. So there I'll go. I'm just gonna wipe up that little bit on the edge there because any of that black will get on the rest of my card base, and I don't want that happening and ruining it. Especially because I have the blended color, it's not so easy as just erasing it with a sand eraser. So there's what you get, and I'm gonna go ahead and do that on the other side too. And that's your final product there. So it gives you such a nice light effect that ties in the front of the card to the inside by the colors and that stamp. And I had to kick it up a notch. So I'm adding this Ranger holographic embossing powder with my Versamark watermark ink. And I'm going to use this technique. What I wanted to do is create that sort of faded effect as you go into the center of the card, just like I made with the Oxide inks. So I'm putting this on with uneven pressure. So I'm adding extra pressure to that orangey edge and more of a lighter pressure towards the yellow because I want it to taper off at the top of that yellow part. So that's exactly how I'm going to be doing it. And now let's see how this works out. So I'm going to put the embossing powder on top, and it actually worked out pretty well. So I get a bit more embossing powder at the bottom there, and it sort of tapers off at the top of that yellow, which is just perfect because I don't want it there where I'm going to be putting my writing. And as you can see, it creates a really nice glittery shine. Really, really cool. And because this is like a clear embossing powder, that white will turn into a transparent color. So that's how you know when your embossing powder has heated and melted to the card, just so that you don't end up burning it. And that's the really cool effect that you get there. I really like how that turned out. Then I did that again on both sides. Okay, now I'm going to move on and figure out how I'm going to do my sentiment. So I was really excited about this. So this is the Simon Says Stamp Beautiful Flowers stamp set. I used that beautiful sentiment there that I showed you. And there it is on the front of the card. Now I get really excited when this happens. I found a set from Altenew that ties in perfectly with that sentiment that I can put in the inside of my card. So here's the Altenew set called Beautiful Inside. Go figure, beautiful. So it's a really cool stamp set. It's got so many different sentiments here. Thank you, happy birthday, thinking of you, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a bunch of other little sentiments at the bottom there. But I was really taken away by the fact that it had this sentiment that mentioned beautiful in it that I could pair up just perfectly with the outside of my card. And I'm showing you it also has all these other little images that you could add to your card too that I really like. So I'm taking this sentiment here, and it says, sending birthday wishes your way for a beautiful year ahead filled with lots of love, fun, and happiness. So that word beautiful makes it perfect to add to the inside of this card, tying in have a beautiful birthday to the inside of the card. And here I'm just super, super happy and excited I found this match. Whenever something like this happens, I get so excited. Anyways, I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black again to stamp my sentiment, just using an acrylic block. So I'm sort of eyeballing it, and I'm just going to stamp it on here. Now I want to show you this. So I'm really lazy. I didn't line it up in my MISTI, and I just eyeballed it. And as you can see, how I've stamped it is sort of off center. So it's a little more to the left than it should be. And I want to show you how you can even that out and make it look like you never made a mistake at all. So I'm using one of those little images, and I'm adding it to the side there. So now once I've stamped that down, it looks perfectly center, like I meant to do it. So it's a really cool way to fix a mistake in terms of lining up your sentiment in the center of your card. So now I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the rest of that card. And I'm just going to use some Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue just so that I have some wiggle room when I'm trying to get it in place. It's a little more tricky adding a page all the way along, like completely covering the inside of your card like this. So I do recommend using the liquid glue. That way you can move it around exactly how you need to. Now I actually did a lot of like cutting and sort of making this fit, but I edited that all out for you. But it's a lot of fussing. And again, I had to finish this off by adding some more of these gems to that little, I don't know, it sort of looks like berries, a little branch of berries to the inside of my card. Give it a bit more pizzazz. And that's what I have for you today. So there's my card front and the inside. I hope you like it. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up and a like below. If you do have a chance, I have my blog listed in the description below. Take a look at it. I've got a bunch more cards that show the insides and outs. You also have a chance here to subscribe to my channel here. There's a link right here, and then 2 more links for a couple other videos. One of them is actually a scrapbook page that I have to mention this. I won the Simon Says Stamp Monday challenge last week for the scrapbook page, and I'm so proud of it. So take a look at it, and I hope you like it. So I'll see you guys next time, and have a great day.